West Hall, and welcome back to Learning Old English with the Wordhoard, a Medievolution Project production. I'm Richard Scott Nokes, your host. Those of you who've been following along faithfully might have noticed that earlier this week we didn't have our regularly scheduled post and podcast. The reason for that is simply that I fell hopelessly behind and really wasn't able to get to that. So instead of having your normal vocabulary quiz this time, I've doubled up the vocabulary that you would have gotten on Tuesday and Thursday. I'm going to try to avoid doing that in the future, but sometimes life gets in the way. So we're finishing up nouns, which we have spent 2 weeks on. You should have been making real progress in learning those noun paradigms. And if you're anything like my students in the classroom, one of the things you noticed is that those noun paradigms are really similar to those pronoun paradigms, and you've started to maybe notice some patterns. If you're having difficulty memorizing them, just write out those paradigms once a day, every day, and pretty soon you'll learn them pretty handily. In addition to starting to read the verbs chapter, and I'll talk more about verbs probably next week, we're starting a new translation. I hope you enjoyed the translation of mini text A, and now we're starting mini text B, A Miracle of Saint Benedict. Now, these sorts of tales of miracles and wonders and saints' lives were very, very popular in the Middle Ages, and naturally they're also very popular among the Anglo-Saxons. So a lot of very fine Anglo-Saxon literature, Old English literature, that you are now finally able to find yourself translating is about the lives of saints and the miracles and wonders often that they worked after their deaths. And I just want to give you a couple of little clues while you're for translating this. So let me just read you the first line. Eak hit je lamp sumede that tha je brothru timbredom thas mustres hus. Now, the first part of this is Eak hit je lamp sume dea that. Eak, as you will notice when you start to look it up, means something like also. You're going to become very accustomed seeing that word a lot. But then there's this construction here, hit je lamp. Now, hit you will probably recognize as being a form of the neuter demonstrative. The neuter pronoun, and it means something like it. Je lamp, though, if you are not using a glossary and are instead using a dictionary, you might have a little trouble finding this. This is a form of the verb je limpan, L-I-M-P-A-N. And je limpan means something like to happen or to occur. So we see here this construction, hit je lamp, and that means something like it happened or it occurred. This is a pretty common construction, often when starting a story or starting a new passage in Old English writing. Then they'll say, and then it happened, and then it happened one day that blah blah blah, or then it happened after this that something else occurred. So don't let that je lamp confuse you. That is je limpan, a verb that you're going to become very familiar with simply from seeing it all the time. One other caution I want to give you about this particular passage is, especially near the beginning, there's talk of a stone. Don't forget that gender is not necessarily natural gender. And so later on you will find some masculine pronouns that refer back to this stone. When you see those masculine pronouns, don't assume that somehow there's a guy, one man who's just sort of wandered into this and go, oh, this must be Saint Benedict who's wandered into the middle of the story. That isn't the way necessarily that it works. And you might then ask, well, how do I translate this? I mean, it says he or him would maybe be the best translation, but it's referring back to the stone. Because it's not natural gender, it's preferable then, if the pronoun is standing for something that we would translate as it in modern English, to go ahead and translate it as it, even if the verb, even if the pronoun is masculine in Old English, so it looks like it might be he or him, but it's referring to an object. Go ahead and translate that it. Anyway, I think you'll find this particular mini text delightful, and I think it's really indicative of a kind of literature that the Anglo-Saxons really enjoyed, and it's also kind of literature I think that a lot of people who are first learning about medieval literature at first think is kind of strange, but then find it has its own special delights. I kind of think that if the Anglo-Saxons were to come into the future and read our works, they'd be just as mystified by maybe our science fiction or our fantasy. Of course, to the Anglo-Saxons, these are historical accounts of fantastical things that occurred. Okay, so before we go, I want to read to you, as I normally do, the vocabulary list. This time, though, of course, I have two vocabulary lists to read to you, and the first one is verbs 3. Niman, which is to take, sprekan, which is to speak, bakan, which is to bake, hatan, which is to command or to be called, and those two things don't seem to go together, but that's a pretty common verb. You'll see that a lot. Flowan, which is to flow, seilvan, which is to seethe, teon, which is to accuse, seon, which is to see, slayan, which is to slay, thon, which is also to take just as Niman was to take, agan, which is to possess, and dugan, which is to be good. Moving on to the list for verbs 4, the ones that you will, I'll give you a quiz on that next time probably. Duran, which is to dare, motan, which is must or to be allowed, yemunan, which is to remember, yebenugan, which is to be enough, thorfan, which is to need, unan, which is to grant, dom, which is to do. You'll be seeing that verb a lot. Gan, which is to go. You'll also be seeing that one a lot. Wilan, which is will. Ashian, which is to ask. Wepan, which is to weep. And slapan, which is to sleep. So, until next time, start reading those verb chapters, dig into that new translation, and enjoy learning your Old English.